Welcome to Urban Living with Swarna. This is your cozy corner in the chaos of city life, where we tune in for soulful chats on travel, nutrition, mental clarity, and simple habits to help you breathe easier, live better, and glow from the inside out. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Urban Living with Swarna. Also, happy Halloween to everyone who's celebrating. A very happy belated Diwali to everyone who's celebrated. Today, we're diving into a topic that's really close to my heart and important for every man and woman listening. October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and I couldn't think of a better time to have this conversation. Today's episode is one of my most important yet because it's about a conversation most of us avoid until it's too late. Cancer screening and early detection for men and women. Now, I know this episode is coming out a little later than planned, and I'm really sorry about that. Life got busy and I wanted to take time to do this one right. It's not just about another health episode. It's a deeply personal one. And I wanted to make sure I got every word, every story, and every fact just right. This episode is all about awareness, prevention, and empowerment, not fear. I decided to talk about this because everywhere we look, from rising cancer rates to increasing pollution and lifestyle-related diseases, it's becoming clearer that early detection truly saves lives. I've seen so many people around me lack that self-awareness and ignore simple tests that could have caught something early. And honestly, I don't want that for any of us. You know, earlier this month, I flew to Tokyo with Japan Airlines, and something really thoughtful caught my attention. As we were about to land, the cabin crew made an announcement reminding everyone about Breast Cancer Awareness Month, since it was October. And I just thought, wow, that's such a powerful gesture. Because even around Tokyo, I noticed pink ribbons and flyers outside hospitals, gently reminding people to get screened and stay aware. It felt so good to see how Japanese take their health so seriously. Back home in India, we do have some awareness programs and campaigns, but honestly, it hasn't caught on at the same scale yet. And I really hope that changes because breast cancer is one of the most common cancers in India. And a simple reminder like this can make a big difference. I just want to share a story here of a friend of mine. Back in March, she's in her mid-30s, by the way, and she went in for a regular checkup thinking it was nothing serious. But one test led to another, and as part of her annual health screening, her family physician had also recommended a breast ultrasound. That is something most of us don't even consider at that age. And that scan revealed multiple cysts. And thankfully, they were all benign after they went through a lot of testing. But it was a real wake-up call for both of us, because she hadn't noticed any major symptoms. And if she hadn't followed through with that routine checkup, she might have never known. It made me realize how easy it is for people to overlook their health when life gets busy. And I get it. We're juggling careers, families, personal goals, yada, million things every day. But health checkups often end up at the bottom of the to-do list. And here's the truth. If you don't take care of your health, no one else will. And you know, as part of my annual health checkup, I always made sure to include an abdominal ultrasound. And starting this year, I've also decided to get a breast ultrasound every alternate year, just to stay on top of things. And the same friend did something really beautiful. After her lab results came back, she booked a breast scan for her 60-year-old mother for the very first time, because it wasn't part of her usual health checkup. And the technician actually appreciated her for taking that step, saying it's something not many people think about proactively. And her mother walked out of the scan room smiling, just relieved and at peace. And honestly, that's what awareness is all about. Catching things early, feeling reassured, and knowing you're taking care of yourself. I want this episode to empower you, to give you the tools and knowledge so you don't wait for symptoms to scream at you. Because when it comes to cancer and many other health issues, prevention and early detection really do save lives. These are not just numbers. They could be your mother, sister, friend, even you. They're women and men whose lives could have been changed by an early test, a scan, or a vigilant doctor. Now, it is important to mention that not every test out there is necessary for everyone, and the key ones are already part of your annual health checkup. But in today's world, where we're constantly surrounded by pollutants, processed food, rising rates of cancer, and lifestyle diseases, it's becoming more important than ever to stay informed and proactive about your health, as well as your loved ones. The screenings and tests that I'm going to talk about in this podcast are meant to be guided by your symptoms and family history, not fear. For instance, if you've never had digestion issues, chronic bloating, family history of stomach cancers, you probably don't need to check for H. pylori or stomach cancer markers right away. The same goes for ovarian or prostate markers. They're meant for people who show signs, have persistent discomfort, or a strong genetic link. Think of these as tools, not to-do list items. They're there to help your doctor dig deeper when something feels off, not to overwhelm you with unnecessary reports. So listen to your body. It usually gives you enough hints before things get serious. With that in mind, let's just get into cancer screenings that everyone should be aware of. Let's talk about one of the most common cancers worldwide. In the US, there are about 300,000 plus new cases of invasive breast cancer in women. For men in the US in 2025, the estimate is about 2,800 new cases. The lifetime risk of developing breast cancer for a woman in the US is about 1 in 8. That's about 12.9%. So, almost 13% chance of developing invasive breast cancer during her lifetime. Unfortunately, many women in the US found out way too late. That's why delayed diagnosis is so common, because people often don't recognize breast symptoms like nipple changes, lumps, or discharge as potential cancer signs. In Australia, breast cancer is projected to be the leading cancer in women, at least in 2024. About 20,000 new cases of breast cancer are diagnosed in Australian women each year. When it comes to men, Australia mirrors US trends. Breast cancer in women is far more common, but men represent a very small yet significant subset. It is not US alone. In India, cancer accounts for more than 1.4 million new cases. Over half of those were women. Breast cancer is the most common, with nearly 200,000 new cases, and unfortunately, it's also one of the deadliest, because many women find out way too late. To give you a sense of how serious it is, out of every 5 people diagnosed with cancer in India, 3 will lose their battle. That's a heartbreaking reality that hits close to home for so many families. For India, breast cancer in women is the most common cancer type in many regions. A study in New Delhi found 30% of breast cancer cases among women were in women under 40 years. That's crazy. Honestly, it breaks my heart to read out these numbers out loud, but it is still an important subject to talk about. If breast cancer runs in your family, say your mom, sister, or even an uncle had it, it's smart to start keeping a closer watch. Doctors usually recommend beginning screening earlier than usual, sometimes 10 years before the age your relative was diagnosed. Let's say if your mother was diagnosed around the 35th mark, it's really smart to start screening around the age of 20. Now, let's talk about testing. The main test is a mammogram, which is basically a low-dose X-ray that checks for tiny changes or lumps in the breast before they can even be felt. If you tend to get breast cysts, those fluid-filled little sacs that can feel lumpy but are usually harmless, or if your breasts are super dense, which just means that there's more tissue than fat, your doctor might suggest an extra imaging like an ultrasound or even an MRI for a clearer picture. There's also another test called CA15-3 or CA27-29 test. These are just blood tests that measure tumor markers, which are proteins that sometimes increase when cancer cells are active. Now, these tests can't diagnose breast cancer on their own, but they can help your doctors track changes over time, especially if someone's already high risk or under observation. This is really interesting. We have already established that men can get breast cancer as well. It's rare, but it happens. But if a man carries BRCA1 or BRCA2 gene mutations, these are inherited genetic changes that increase cancer risk. For instance, if you're carrying any of these gene mutations, you can talk to your doctor about genetic testing and regular checkups. These same genes are also linked to prostate cancer, so early awareness really helps. If you have a family history of prostate cancer, especially in a close relative like a father or a grandfather, it is a key indicator for considering BRCA1 or second genetic testing. We'll talk about it in more detail when we talk about prostate cancer. I usually always do a simple self-check at home once a month. It's not about obsessing over every tiny change, but just getting familiar with how your body normally feels. So you'll notice if something's really different. The best time to do a self-help breast scan is a few days after your period ends. That's when your breasts are less tender and swollen. So I usually just gently press around the entire breast and underarm area with pads or sometimes my own fingers and try to look for any new lumps, thickened areas, or cyst-like bumps. So cysts would often feel like smooth, soft, and they sometimes move under your fingers, while a solid lump may feel firmer or fixed. Also keep an eye out for any nipple changes, discharge, or skin dimpling. Most changes are harmless, but if something feels new or unusual and doesn't go away after your next cycle, it's worth checking with your doctor. Think of it as getting to know your body, not a test, but a little monthly conversation with yourself. Now let's talk about second most common cancer in men around the world, prostate cancer. About 1 in 8 men will be diagnosed with it in their lifetime, and roughly 1 in 41 will die from it in the United States. Though most cases when caught early are highly treatable. In India, the numbers are climbing fast. Prostate cancer now ranks among the top 10 cancers affecting Indian men, and studies predict that cases could double by 2040. In Australia, it's one of the most commonly diagnosed cancer in men, with about 1 in 6 men likely to be diagnosed before age 85. But thanks to regular testing and strong awareness campaigns in Australia, survival rates there are amongst the best in the world. Now, the tricky part is that prostate cancer often develops silently. It is really important to understand because in the early stages, most men would feel completely fine. No pain, no warning signs, but as it grows, you might start noticing changes in your urination, like a weaker stream, feeling like you can't empty your bladder fully, or waking up multiple times at night to pee. Some men might see blood in their urine or semen, or feel a dull ache in the lower back or hips. These are small signs, but your body's way of whispering, hey, check this out. That's where screening comes in. The main one is the PSA test. That is short for prostate-specific antigen. It's just a simple blood test that looks for a protein your prostate naturally produces. Higher levels of this protein can sometimes hint that something's off. It doesn't always mean cancer, but it helps doctors decide if more checks are needed. Include this test in the annual blood checkup for your dad or spouse, or if you're booking it for someone else. Otherwise, make sure it's added to your own health panel if it isn't already. It's one of those small additions that can make a big difference. Another test your doctor might do is the digital rectal exam, or a DRE. Many doctors will skip this if the PSA test results are normal. But if your PSA is high or if you have symptoms, it's a valuable next step to get a clearer picture. If your dad, brother, or uncle had prostate or even breast cancer, or if you carry a BRCA1 or BRCA2 gene mutation. By the way, you'd have to get a blood test done to figure out if you do have these genetic mutations. It's wise to start testing a bit earlier. I'd say even in your early 40s, because when prostate cancer is found early, the survival rate is about 95%. And most men go on to live long, healthy lives. So don't think of it as a scary test. Think of it as a routine health check, the same way you'd service your car before a long drive. The next cancer is one of the most preventable cancers out there, thanks to screening and vaccinations. The not so good news, many women will skip the test, often out of discomfort, fear, or simply not knowing when to start. Cervical cancer usually develops very slowly over several years, and it almost always starts with a human papillomavirus infection, or HPV for short. HPV is a super common virus. Most sexually active people get it at some point, but in some cases, certain high-risk strains can cause changes in cervical cells that, if left unchecked, can lead to cancer. That's why screening is so powerful. The main tests are the pap smear and the HPV test. A pap smear checks for abnormal cells on the cervix before they turn cancerous. It's quick, just a small sample of cells is taken during a pelvic exam, and it can literally catch the disease years before it even becomes dangerous. The HPV test, on the other hand, looks directly for the virus itself. Many labs now combine both tests in one go, which is even more effective. So if you ever have to get tested, make sure that both tests are included in your test panel. Screening usually starts around age 21, and if results are normal, most people only need it once every 3 to 5 years, depending on the doctor's advice. For those with a family history of cervical cancer, immune system issues, or multiple sex partners, your doctor may recommend more frequent checks. In the United States, routine screening has brought cervical cancer rates down dramatically. It's now relatively rare compared to a few decades ago. In India, however, it's still one of the top 2 cancers in women, partly because many women don't get screened. And in Australia, thanks to strong national HPV vaccination and testing programs, cervical cancer is on track to become virtually eliminated by 2035, a huge public health success story. So if you haven't had a pap smear test in a while, make it a part of your next checkup. And if you're booking annual health tests for your mom, wife, sister, gently remind them to include it too. It's one of those 5-minute things that can make a long difference. And finally, HPV vaccination. This isn't just for young girls anymore. HPV vaccination is now recommended for boys too, ideally before they become sexually active. Since HPV can cause cancers in both men and women, prevention really is better than cure here. Let's take a minute to talk about HPV vaccine here, because it's honestly one of the biggest breakthroughs we have had in cancer prevention. So the vaccine protects against human papillomavirus, or HPV in short. It's the same virus that causes nearly 99% of cervical cancers. But that's not all. HPV also can lead to vaginal, vulval, anal, throat, and penile cancers, and even some certain head and neck cancers that are becoming more common in men. So when people say this vaccine prevents cancer, they really mean it. The most widely used version today is Gardasil 9. By the way, this is the same version that I got. The 9 stands for the 9 HPV types it covers, 7 that are already known to cause cancer and 2 that are known to cause genital warts. Together, these 9 strains account for almost 90% of all HPV-related cancers worldwide, and that's huge. The best time to get vaccinated is before becoming sexually active, usually around ages of 9 to 14, but it can also help adults up to age 45. It's given as 2 or 3 shots spread over a few months, and once you've completed the series, you're pretty much done. Long-term protection is excellent. For instance, my doctor recommended the first dose at month 0, that's the date of the first shot, and the second dose was 1 to 2 months after the first dose, and the third dose was 6 months after the first dose, or at least 3 months after the second dose. You know, one of the most common questions I get asked was, should my daughter get HPV vaccinated because she is not sexually active? Well, the answer is yes, because HPV is transmitted through direct skin-to-skin or mucous membrane contact with an infected person, not just through sexual intercourse. While less common, but transmission can also occur through contaminated objects, instruments, or even fingers. And the second question is, should my son get the vaccine? Yes, because HPV isn't just a girl's vaccine. Boys absolutely need it too, because HPV doesn't care about gender. And vaccinating both helps stop the virus from spreading in the first place. So if you're a parent, ask your child's doctor about the HPV vaccine. If you're an adult and haven't had it yet, it's worth a conversation at your next checkup. Think of Gardasil 9 as a quite superhero because it doesn't get much hype, but it's out there stopping multiple cancers before they even begin. Now, let's talk about another most common and treatable cancers around the world, skin cancer. Skin cancer usually happens when UV rays for the sun or even tanning beds damage your skin cells over time. The key here is awareness and awareness alone. I would recommend always do a quick skin check every month. Look for new moles, changes in size or color, or any spot that bleeds, crusts, or doesn't heal. If something looks off, don't ignore it. Dermatologists usually recommend a full body skin exam every year, especially if you have fair skin, lots of moles, or a family history of melanoma. And of course, sunscreen is your best friend. Use one with at least SPF 50 plus or higher. Reapply if you're outdoors for long, but don't skip your ears, neck, or back of your hands. Nowadays, they also sell umbrellas with about 99% UV protection against the sun. I think that's also a great option if you find reapplying skincare over and over again a bit of a hassle. Next up, stomach cancer. In 2024, stomach cancer was among the 5th most common cancer worldwide according to World Health Organization, with rates of diagnosis and death being significantly higher in East Asia, especially countries like Mongolia, Japan, and South Korea. If you have a family history of certain cancers, there are a few simple blood tests that can help you stay ahead. For example, when it comes to stomach health, there are 2 tests, CA72-4 and CE8. Both are blood tests that check for specific proteins that your body releases when there are abnormal changes in your stomach lining. The beauty of these tests is that you don't need to do them often. For most people, it's a one-time screening in your 20s or 30s. And if you're someone who's been struggling with chronic acidity, bloating, digestion issues that never seem to settle, here's something worth checking. H. pylori. Statistics show that it's one of the most common infections in the world, affecting nearly 4.4 billion people. That's more than half of the global population, by the way. What's surprising is that most people don't even know they have it, because it often shows up with very mild or vague symptoms. But when left untreated, it can cause gastritis, ulcers, iron or B12 deficiencies. Studies have also shown that people with long-term H. pylori infections have a 6 times higher risk of developing stomach cancer later in life. The good news? It's easy to detect and treat. A simple breath stool or blood test can pick it up. And if it's positive, a short antibiotic course can clear it completely. After that, you just need to retest once after 6 months to make sure it's really gone. So if you've been living with that my stomach's always upset feeling, that might just be a quiet culprit. And catching it early doesn't just make you feel better. It actually protects you from bigger issues down the road. Next up, ovarian cancer. The ovaries aren't just about reproduction. They also regulate hormones, energy, and your mood. Throughout a woman's life, ovaries change during puberty, menstrual cycles, pregnancy, premenopause, and then eventually menopause. Several ovarian issues like PCOS, cysts, fibroids are common, but when left unchecked can lead to long-term problems or mask early cancer signs. What do I mean by that? If you have a history of cysts or fibroids, the problem is sometimes these cysts and fibroids can grow, twist, rupture, and mimic into several ovarian cancer symptoms. And I'm not saying every fibroid or cyst will mimic cancer, far from it. What I'm saying is that if you ever have the option to get it checked or removed, please don't postpone it, because prevention is power. Ovarian cancer often shows vague, subtle symptoms before that overlaps with your regular digestive or hormonal issues. That's why it's called the silent killer, because it's often detected very late. In India, it's the 3rd most common gynecological cancer and one of the leading causes of cancer deaths among women. Early detection, stage 1 or 2, can increase survival rates to over 90%. That is why it is so important to spread awareness about ovarian cancer. So the question arises, how to take care of your ovarian health? Now, it is important to learn about a blood test called CA125. It basically stands for Cancer Antigen 125 blood test. It's a protein that is found in your blood. Some women naturally have small amounts of it, but when levels are high, it can signal something's irritating or inflaming the ovaries. A high CA125 generally means there's something wrong and it could be ovarian cancer, but it can also rise due to harmless conditions like endometriosis, fibroids, infections, or even menstruation. That's why this test alone isn't enough for diagnosis, and it's used along with imaging, especially a transvaginal ultrasound. It is far more accurate than a regular abdominal ultrasound for seeing the size, shape, texture of your ovaries. To detect ovarian cysts, fibroids, or even tumors early, sometimes even before symptoms appear. It is also excellent to monitor known cysts over time, whether they are growing or shrinking. Next up, BRCA1 or BRCA2 testing for ovarian cancer. This is usually done to see if you carry a genetic mutation that raises your cancer risk. You might consider genetic testing if you have a family history of breast, ovarian, or prostate cancer. Someone in your family was diagnosed with these cancers before the age of 50. There are multiple relatives on one side of your family with the same type of cancer. You have Ashkenazi Jewish ancestry where BRCA mutations are generally far more common. When it comes to BRCA mutation, it increases the risk of ovarian cancer by up to 40 to 50% and breast cancer up to 70 to 80% in women. BRCA2 mutation, however, increases the risk of ovarian cancer around 15 to 25% and breast cancer around 60 to 70% and can sometimes raise the risk of pancreatic and prostate cancer as well. These tests aren't meant to scare you, they're meant to empower you. Think of them as preventive shields. They don't just detect problems, they help stop the process early, before it even turns into something serious. Because ovarian cancer doesn't show up overnight. It will always start small. Bloating, fatigue, irregular cycles, a cyst you didn't think mattered. But when we listen early, we can act early. So if you ever have a cyst or a fibroid, get it checked. Don't wait for pain to push you to the doctor. Next up, lung cancer. You know, my grandpa was a tough man. He was a chain smoker in his younger years, but he eventually quit smoking in his later years. Something that takes incredible willpower. But even after that, he continued with his occasional drink and eating tobacco almost on a daily basis. That old school habit so many in India grew up with. We never really thought much of it, but he looked strong. He walked daily. He never complained. But one day, much later in life, doctors found something suspicious in his lungs during a scan. My grandpa already had asthma. He had this persistent cough, and he always had breathlessness that could be chalked up to age. But that shadow that he had in his lung turned out to be cancer. Honestly, I was stunned. I didn't see it coming at all. This is something I will always carry with me till the time I die. I regret not insisting, not taking him to the hospital myself, not pushing the doctors harder to run that scan sooner. It's something I'll have to learn to live with. I don't know if I can, but it's also what drives me to talk about this. Because if sharing my story makes even one person act sooner, maybe it will be able to turn that regret into purpose. What I learned from Dada's experience is this. Lung cancer can remain completely silent for years, especially in people who have smoked in the past, even if they quit decades ago. It's not just the smokers. Urban air pollution, passive smoking, and even exposure to biomass smoke, the kind that comes from traditional cooking methods, can all raise the risk. And this is especially concerning for women who are often exposed to this kind of indoor smoke for years without realizing its long-term effects. A study found that in Delhi, out of 3,019 adults screened, 34.35% had impaired lung function. In New Delhi, the air quality regularly reaches very unhealthy hazardous levels. For example, on certain days, the AQI, that is the air quality index, soared past 400-500, meaning severe to hazardous air. On life expectancy, this is rather interesting. One estimate said that people in Delhi and nearby areas lose about 8.5 to 9.5 years of life due to exposure to air pollution. In Delhi again, the air you breathe every day isn't just background noise. It's a risk factor. Even if you've never smoked or quit years ago, if you live in a place where the air is toxic, if you're exposed to heavy smoke, traffic pollution, crop burning smoke, or old indoor stoves, that adds up. The data show 1 in 3 adults has impaired lung function. The city regularly reaches pollution levels that are equivalent to smoking dozens of cigarettes a day. That's crazy. Imagine this. You step outside your house, you take a deep breath, and that breath already carries tiny particles from vehicles, dust, industry, crop burning. Over time, those particles settle in your lungs, cause inflammation, reduce how well your lungs work, and raise the odds of something like lung cancer. When it comes to cancer of lungs, we are seeing rising cases, especially in men in urban Delhi. And the studies show a statistically significant link between ambient pollution, especially fine particles like PM2.5, and lung cancer incidence and mortality. So when I tell you this, it's not just about smoking. Yes, smoking is a big risk, but living in high pollution cities like Delhi adds a silent layer of danger. It's the shadow you didn't see. And that's why screening and early detection matters so much, especially if you live in a polluted environment. Even in places with advanced healthcare systems, lung cancer is still one of the toughest cancers to beat. For example, in the United States, the 5-year relative survival rate for all lung cancers combined sits at about 29%, meaning fewer than 3 in 10 people diagnosed will still be alive 5 years later. In Australia, the story is similar. Among people diagnosed between 2017 to 2021, the 5-year relative survival was roughly 27.3%, about 22.7% for men, 33% for women. Still very low compared to many other major cancers. And in India, things are even harder. A recent review found that more than 83% of newly diagnosed lung cancer patients present with advanced stage 3 or 4, which means the cancer has already spread and treatment options are far more limited. So when we say early detection matters, we really mean it, because if lung cancer is caught early, the survival rates shoot up. In the US, for example, if it's detected when the cancer is still localized inside the lung and hasn't spread, the 5-year survival rate can be around 65% or more. If you have a history of COVID-19, tuberculosis, or if you were a long-term smoker, have asthma or any lung disease in the family, it's strongly recommended that you get pulmonary function tests, that is PFTs, done every year with your annual health checkup. PFT is a test that my doctor recommended to add in my annual health checkup as well, even though I don't have any respiratory problems as such. These tests basically check how well your lungs move air in and out, how efficiently they deliver oxygen to your bloodstream, and whether there are any signs of damage, restriction, or obstruction. When you do get these tests, however, don't settle for it's probably nothing if you're experiencing persistent or unexplained coughing, shortness of breath, especially with mild activity, chest tightness, wheezing or noisy breathing, feeling winded more easily than before. Start with a full pulmonary function test, and if your symptoms persist even after normal test results, don't stop there. Please ask for a low-dose CT scan, that is LDCT, of the lungs. A large US study, NLST, showed that this test reduced lung cancer deaths by 20%. Simply by catching cancers earlier than your regular chest x-rays. And this matters because early-stage lung cancer has a 5-year survival rate of over 56%, while late-stage survival drops drastically. Don't wait for symptoms. Sometimes scans tell the truth that lungs never will. CT imaging can detect things that PFTs still might miss, including early-stage lung disease, lung scarring, post-COVID fibrosis, any pulmonary nodules or growths, chronic inflammation, or hidden infections. So, if there's anything I do want you to take away from today's episode, it's this. Don't wait. Don't wait for a symptom or a scare or for something to feel off. The truth is, cancer often whispers before it even shouts. And those screenings, those regular checkups are your way of listening before it's too late. Whether it's a mammogram, a pap test, or a PSA, or a simple lung scan, these aren't just medical procedures. They're acts of care, acts of love for yourself and for the people who love you and you love. And please remember, getting screened doesn't mean something's wrong. It means you're doing something right. You're staying aware. You're taking charge of your health. Because when it comes to cancer or any disease for that matter, time is everything. The sooner it's found, the stronger your chances. The earlier it's detected, the simpler the treatment. And the more we talk about it openly, without fear, the more lives we save. So, stay curious, stay proactive, and as always, stay healthy, stay happy, and stay sound. Hit that notification button if you never want to miss an episode. And if this one resonated with you, give it a like or a share. I'd love to hear your biggest takeaways from today. DM me on Instagram at swarna_joshi_podcast or drop me an email at suwarnajoshi1515@gmail.com. Until next time, take care of yourself and keep listening.